Hello friends, bases an embarrassingly large amount of his self-worth on his Dota 2 MMR here, bringing you another Dota 2 video in which I'm going to tell you how to gain a lot of MMR in the current patch. So the three main heroes that I'm spamming right now to gain MMR is Pudge, that's my go-to hero, Enchantress, another one of my go-to heroes, and my third hero, which I'm seeing a decent amount of people spam in the offlane role in pro-level pubs, is Ogre Magi. We already have an Enchantress guide. I make way too many Pudge videos, so I figured let's talk about Ogre. So first, let's talk about skills and items on our favorite two-headed beefy boy in Dota. So first you want to start with Ignite because this ability does so much at level 1 for a low mana cost, does high damage, has a high duration, and it's a good slow. It's good for laning, it's good for killing people. However, you can go for a first point in Fire Blast if you have a stun to set up for, such as a Lina stun or a Leshrac stun to follow up. Level 3, you can go for a second point at Ignite. That's acceptable. It's good for laning. Or you can go for a second point in Fire Blast if you want more burst. Both of these abilities scale extremely well, so maxing either of them for the first few levels is okay. However, soon after your level 6, you want to make sure that your Fire Blast is maxed out because this ability, Multicast, now has a 75% chance to be 2x at level 1. That means almost every time you're going to get a 2x Fire Blast. So this is a long stun duration, and it is a ridiculous nuke that allows you to pressure very hard. So you want to have this maxed out. When it comes to Bloodlust, a lot of people will go for a value point in it at level 3 or level 4. In this particular game and in a lot of other games, I feel like I will get enough levels that by the time I want to Bloodlust my carry or whatever hero it is I want to Bloodlust, even if it's like a Lone Druid Bear, I will have the levels at that point that I can get a later point in Bloodlust, and I won't be punished too hard for maxing out my damage. So at level 10, you want to go for 90 gold per minute. This is one of the best level 10 talents in Dota. 90 GPM is way too high. This is one of the most fun things about playing Ogre. You get level 10, all of a sudden your farm just blows up. Level 15, you go for the 100 damage talent. For a long time, they just buffed this hero by making his numbers way too high on the talents. So this is one of those cases where you'd think Ogre would go for 350 health, but 100 damage is way too much. So most people will go for it unless you're in one of those situations where you need no damage at all on your team. You have all of that covered, such as if you have a very farmed Terrorblade or something along those lines. Level 20, another one of these situations, 40 strength is just too high of a number. You want to go for 40 strength unless you have a hero specifically that you want to put that Bloodlust on that is integral to your strategy, such as a Lone Druid Bear or a Terrorblade. Level 25, 300 Fire Blast damage is mandatory because if you get lucky enough, you can one-hit their carry. It is absolutely ludicrous. This hero is extremely good in the late game. So, the core items on this hero, you want to start with going for your Soul Ring into regular boots, into stick, of course Quelling Blade for last hitting in the lane, and then build into full phase boots, which makes you quite tanky, and then after that, because you have a bunch of value items, you can go for a Hand of Midas. Multicasting this is one of the best things to happen to Ogre in Dota, and then what do you do with all of this farm? You build your kind of generic, tanky, helpful scaling offlane items such as Heaven's Halberd, Medallion of Courage is great, into Solar Crest, Pipe of Insight. Sometimes if you need a Vlad's on your team, that is good. Spirit Vessel, that's fine. Crimson Guard, that's good. Force Staffs, any of these supporty items are going to be great. And then after one or two of these, you probably want to start looking to build into these more luxury items such as Shiva's Guard, such as Assault Cuirass. And then once you have one or two of these, at some point you feel like you've helped your team enough, you've supported your team enough, you're tanky enough, you build into an Aghanim Scepter and you do more damage. So I realize that I say a very similar thing to this every time I do a hero guide, but the laning stage on Ogre is clinical. You just do the same thing every time and either it works or it doesn't, and usually it works because this hero is very strong right now. So basically what you do is what you have seen me do so far. You walk into the lane, you throw as many spells out as you can at your opponents, and use all of your regen that you can. And based on how Ogre functions with his base armor, his base damage, how good Ignite is, how good Fire Blast is, if you are just constantly spamming out your abilities, you will outtrade and then eventually kill your opponents. And if you don't kill them, they won't be able to lane against you. So one minor nuance of this lane, because I know just spamming your spells and getting last hits is relatively simple, this hero is incredibly good at diving and harassing opponents when they're under their own tower. So basically what you can do to guaranteed win almost every lane with Ogre is shove in the lane by tanking it with your body. You know, you can pick up an early chainmail, you have the stout shield, you have your base armor, your base regen. So it's very easy to tank creeps, and if you tank creeps, that will shove a double wave into your opponents, which will allow you to run under their tower and bully them. And even if you can't sit there and right-click them or kill them under their tower, they're still going to take a bunch of damage from your Ignite. So if the creep wave is pushed into them all the time, then that sets you up to constantly side pull. That also sets you up to get the bounty runes. And if you're constantly side pulling and you're getting the bounty runes, you're going to have an XP and gold advantage, not just for you, but for your team, because their carry is going to be a little bit screwed. You're going to have this advantageous lane that your team can rotate to, and so forth. Basically, the bottom line is the more aggressive you can be with this hero in the laning stage, the better. Act like a complete moron. In fact, borderline troll the game and be hilarious, because that sort of mentality is actually extremely good on Ogre. So when it comes to mid-game, or I should say early mid-game, there are two general strategies that you will almost always apply on Ogre. Maybe both in one game, maybe you'll alternate between the two of them, but these are the two strategies. So strategy number one, if your team has heroes that want to fight, and you feel like you're stronger than your opponents, you can show up to an area where there's an objective and fight with your team. That is very important and extremely crucial in this. I see a lot of people in replay review and in coaching sessions, they'll show up to an area where there isn't an objective and they'll fight. What's the point of taking your strong guy and putting them somewhere where there is no pressure or no need to apply pressure? Dota is a game of relieving and applying pressure. You want to do as much as you can with your strong guy. Otherwise, you're going to fall off and you're going to wish you did stuff when you were strong. So in this particular game, I have a Lina and I have a Faceless Void. These are two heroes who like to fight. If I had something like an anti-mage, this might be a little bit different, but I just show up to the mid lane, TP from the bot lane. Especially with this siege creep here, this is a decent rotation because we're very strong. Ogre, once he hits this Phase Boot Soul Ring plus level 7 timing, there are very few heroes in Dota that can compare to how strong he is at this point. So if you just show up to a lane with another core in it that also wants to fight, of course you don't show up to an anti-mage's lane, then generally you're going to get tower. So we can see here that if I speed this up, we're playing around this tower and we're slowly chipping away at it. So now we've secured the mid tower. This opens up the map. We're going to get a lot more farm. My Void is free farming top. Game is extremely easy because we took a fight around an objective on Ogre's power spike by running to a core who wants to fight. So if you have heroes that don't want to fight just yet, such as anti-mages, Medusas, what you would probably do is you can sometimes make those aggressive plays to the core that does want to fight. Sometimes you don't. And if you really have nothing to do in terms of being aggressive on the map, what you want to do is put yourself in front of the tower that the enemy team wants to take next. That is the second kind of strategy that you can apply on Ogre, and it is extremely strong to do that for a window of the game where you would otherwise lose because the enemy team can just run at your tower. So if the enemy team wants to pressure your mid tower with their strong heroes, you're so tanky you could just be a wall in front of the tower and prevent them from getting it for like 5 minutes. It's so game winning. You can also do that in the top lane. Generally, this tower doesn't really matter. If you can prevent the enemy team from getting this or getting this, you are extending the game until your team hits a power spike, and there are very few other heroes in Dota that can do that as well as an Ogre can. It is absolutely broken to do that. So next, I want to talk about how you can function as a tank on Ogre, because I know a lot of people say, oh, this isn't World of Warcraft. There aren't tanks in Dota. Well, there kind of are, because if you're playing a quote-unquote tank hero correctly, then you will be forcing the enemy team to make a move on you by your positioning. So this example, I walk up to the high ground and I start getting hit by the tower, in particular with this bloodlusted siege creep and two other cores hitting the tower. So I intentionally tank the tower because everybody and their mother knows that this hero is going to take effectively 0 damage from a tower. So that means all of the creeps are going to be alive. None of my other cores are going to take damage from this thing. This tower is going to die. This Rax is going to die as long as they don't kill me. So that forces them to have to start something. Ideally, they want to go on the back line, but if they don't focus me, if they don't kill me, I'm going to keep tanking that tower. Tower's going to die. So in this particular situation, you can see that the enemy team, they pop Mirana ulti, and Pangolier gets ready to go in. They're kind of attempting a last-ditch effort at winning a fight. This sets up for Faceless Void to hit a good chrono. Pango's kind of bouncing around, not doing much. And here we have the second thing that I wanted to show you, how I like to get people to focus me in fights. Essentially what I'll do, and I know this sounds ridiculous, is I'll pick one guy on the enemy team that I consider important enough for me to walk up and focus, especially with the Fire Blast. You can use the other spell, the Ignite, on whoever you want, but the Fire Blast in particular, if you use it on a hero, it does a lot of damage. It's very easy to focus a hero that you Fire Blast, especially if it's a support. I pick one guy that I know is integral to the enemy team's team fight, and I focus them so that the enemy team, after a certain point, they're going to be like, okay, we need to go on this Ogre or peel this Ogre away from our Shadow Shaman or Outworld Destroyer, whatever it is that I consider important to the fight, so that way they focus me. And in this particular game, I was focusing the Shadow Shaman because without the Shadow Shaman, they have no stun as long as the Pango uses ulti. And even with the ulti bouncing around, it's not as much disable as a Shadow Shaman would offer. So I ran at that hero. OD is also acceptable if they didn't have any other hero damage, but they have an Ursa, so I figured that even if I focus the OD, the Ursa would still be doing damage. So I wanted to take away the stuns in the fight. So I run in, stun, and because we're super far ahead with the 12k gold lead, I was able to basically not do anything in the fight and still win. But I can assure you that when it's more even, this is a very good way to get the enemy team to waste spells on your absolutely massive HP pool, effective HP pool, I should say. Hello there, statistically likely to be a guy who watched this video all the way through. If you're looking for more content from your boys at Dota Alchemy and you want to support us a little bit more, then patreon.com/Dota Alchemy, we absolutely appreciate it. Or if you hate us and you are just a masochist, patreon.com/Dota Alchemy, we will take whatever we can get. It's 2019, it's a struggle out there in Trump's America. But with that being said, thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I hope to see you in another video.